Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Tech Forum session. I'm Lauren Stewart, Operations Director at BookNet, and welcome to Show and Tell What's in Your Tech Stack. Today, we're going to have a fun roundup of the high and low tech that some of our publishing peers use in their daily workflows. And before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that BookNet Canada's operations are remote and our colleagues contribute their work from the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Wyandot, the Mi'kmaq, the Ojibwa of Fort William First Nation, the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, and the Métis, the original nations and peoples of the lands we now call Beaton, Brampton, Guelph, Halifax, Thunder Bay, Toronto, Vaughan, and Windsor. We encourage you to visit the native-land.ca website to learn more about the peoples whose land you are joining from today. Moreover, BookNet endorses the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada and supports an ongoing shift from gatekeeping to space making in the book industry. The book industry has long been an industry of gatekeeping. Anyone who works at any stage of the book supply chain carries a responsibility to serve readers by publishing, promoting, and supplying works that represent the wide extent of human experiences and identities and all that complicated intersectionality. We at BookNet are committed to working with our partners in the industry as we move towards a framework that supports space making, which ensures that marginalized creators and professionals all have the opportunity to contribute, work, and lead. For our webinar today, if you are having difficulties with Zoom or have any tech-related questions, please put your questions in the chat, or you can email us at techforum@booknetcanada.ca. We're providing live ASL and closed captioning for this session. To see the captions, please find the Show Subtitle button in the Zoom menu at the bottom of your screen. If during the presentation you have questions for us, please use the Q&A panel found in the bottom menu. And lastly, we'd like to remind everyone of the Code of Conduct. Please do be kind, be inclusive, be respectful of others, including of their privacy, be aware of your words and actions, and please report any violations to techforum@booknetcanada.ca. Do not harass speakers, hosts, or attendees, or record these sessions. We have a zero tolerance policy. You can find the entire Code of Conduct at bnctechforum.ca/code-of-conduct. Now let me get started. I'm going to kick us off today with one presentation hack and 3 email tricks. I will be joined by Margaret Bryant, Jason Farrell, Andrew Faulkner, Tamara Mair-Wren, and Brendan Flattery. I'll introduce them more formally once we open up each of their sections. Just give me a moment to transition over to my notes. I should say the slides. There you go. So my first little hack for everyone today is a teleprompter tool, a very low-tech innovation. But if you do a lot of presentations, this tool makes your browser into a teleprompter and is so easy to use. I've also found it is great to copy and paste long articles into it and set the speed at which it automatically scrolls. We're going to pop a link in the chat of this tool so you can kind of load up your tabs to check out later. It's a free tool posted online by an independent developer. This is what it looks like, very, very simple. This is a screenshot of what it does once you start play and you hit that run button. The panel on the right starts moving. And if I change the scroll amount value in the panel on the left, I can speed it up or slow it down. The standard setting is 13, and I'm somewhere close to 30 as my reading speed, so I've found. This is fantastic to use when you need to slow yourself down when presenting and need to speak more slowly, or speed up when you want to read more quickly. The rest of my tools are going to be about email today. I look at my time and I realize that the bulk of my day is spent in my email. So I've spent a lot of time over the years trying to make that time more efficient and enjoyable. And my first trick that I found that not many people know about are Gmail's email templates. This is a seemingly hidden feature in Gmail. I'm regularly introducing this to people. And if you're saving drafts with template replies to emails and then copying and pasting, you can use this to pull up template text in seconds and save all of that time. We'll also pop a link into the chat for this. To create a template, you just first write an email, really simple. To save it as a template, you select the 3 buttons at the bottom, the 3 dots button at the bottom of the email composition window, which is in line with the send button, like you can see here. You select templates and then save draft as template, save as a new template, and then give it a name. Handily, it will use the subject line of the email that you are writing. My suggestion is to keep it brief, as the display allows only about 28 characters, so keep it brief. You'll be able to find it more easily when you need to pull one up. And once you have templates, you can pick up this text, you can edit it, send away. It's effortless. So again, give that a check out if you haven't already. My secret weapon for effective communication and building up boss level communication skills is something called Just Not Sorry. It was inspired by the writings of Tamara Mair and others. It is a Chrome extension for Gmail that will warn you when you use words or phrases that undermine your message. We'll also put a link in the chat for this. It's entirely free and downloadable. I use it in Chrome, but you can try it with other browsers as well. It's supported on GitHub, and you can review their work in a public forum, and you can check everything out there. And here's how it works. I have here an email I wrote just for this purpose. When I use some of the trigger words, it's going to flag those for me. So you can see just, actually, very, forgive, literally, and sorry, all underlined here. Those words will be underlined for the correction that you might want to make as the email sender. And it also, if you hover over, gives you additional information about how using the phrase can be perceived. And this is all based on studies. And don't worry, the underline does not get sent. It's just a superficial thing on the email screen. And if you're trying to hide your Canadianness, Just Not Sorry might be your ticket to a less apologetic email existence, and I thoroughly recommend it. And my last email trick is followupthen.com. Never forget to follow up on an email with Follow Up Then. This will send a reminder in the time period that you select and bring an email back to the top of your inbox automatically. It calls itself the world's simplest email reminder and a personal follow-up assistant, and it really is. It's impossibly simple in its design. You sign up on its website and you download a CSV file of contacts that you import into your email program. And then when you write an email, you add one of these autocomplete contacts to your BCC line. In my example here, I have added 2 weeks at followupthen.com. Once the email sends successfully, you get a confirmation that your follow-up has been scheduled. You can cancel the follow-up from this email or even visit a dashboard where all of your follow-ups are listed. And this actually does work as well on emails that you've scheduled to send later. And once that period of time has passed, so in this case, 2 weeks, to the minute, you will get an email reminding you to follow up with the email you originally sent. You can reschedule it from that same email or act on it right away. And yes, this works beautifully with conversation style email displays where all of your emails are threaded together, and this will thread and collect in that same stream. This is the tool that supplements my to-do list and other organization systems. I really think you can't fail with this one, and I thoroughly recommend you checking it out. Plus, if you want to engage in a little bit of email subterfuge, you can actually CC the follow-up email in the email that you send, and your email recipient will also receive a follow-up when the designated time has passed. And you don't have to use the 2 weeks that I suggest here. This is just an example of the 93 suggested time periods they give you when you download contacts from them. Or you can make up your own time intervals if none of these work. So even you can put March, that's when you follow up. You can put days, weeks, months, using plain text all the time. Very, very easy. I hope you love this one. It's super low tech and it just works, which is my favorite. Next up, we have Margaret Bryant. Margaret has worked in sales, marketing, and acquisitions for Canadian and multinational publishing houses, and currently she's sales director at Orca Book Publishers. Please take it away, Margaret.
Thank you, Lauren. And for a world where the follow-up isn't on us, right? Like, wouldn't that be, that's a dream. Okay, so a couple years ago, the Association of Canadian Publishers did a similar PD Professional Development Day about effectively same sort of thing. And I just happened to find my notes when I was looking to prepare for today. And so I'll share with you, this was from 2.5 years ago. The top favorite tools of the 6 presenters: Google Docs, Asana, Google Docs, Asana, and Zoom. And the 6 least favorite tools were face-to-face meetings, Google Chat, faxes, Google Chat, Microsoft Teams, Slack, and Microsoft Teams. 2.5 years later, Asana is still one of my favorite tools. We use it intensively here at Orca. Lauren, you can just seamlessly advance the slides and I will keep up. It was actually really hard for me to pull very many screenshots to share because we use it so intensively and some of the work is so very specific. So I've tried to pull out some things to show. Effectively, Asana is a project management and workflow management tool. Actually, Lauren, can you go back one slide? I feel like I may have missed one thing. Yeah, okay. On the right-hand side, I just wanted to show you can set up all sorts of different teams in Asana. These are the ones we have at Orca, sort of top-level sales, distributed publishers, digital teams. And you can assign people into multiple teams. Thanks, Lauren. Please move on. So why use Asana? Collaboration. It's designed to facilitate collaboration among team levels. You can assign tasks in Asana to different individuals. You can assign due dates, so you don't need to follow up because they automatically appear in each other's task lists. There's lots of ways of communicating back and forth. We do a lot of chatter in Asana. There's a messaging option as well. It does allow for real-time collaboration like Slack, but it also keeps it all in one software. So we use Asana internally for communications rather than email. That's a hard transition. I gotta admit, it's a really hard transition for a lot of people. But once you move to an all-in platform, a little bit like Teams, I would imagine. I don't use it. The power of having all information and all communication within one platform is huge. So we use a lot of workflows. Lauren, can you go back one slide? I'm sorry for this. One slide, two slides. I want to just show on the left, there's some sample templates. We call them templates, sample workflows that we have set up for bigger types of projects that we need to manage on a regular basis where we're repeating the same set of tasks. And I've pulled out a tiny piece of our trade show workflow, which is on the right-hand side. Again, that's in-house speak there, so it may not all make sense, but you can see that we're sort of saying the lead attendee, whoever the lead attendee on a particular trade show is, does these around group A whenever they decide group A is, and then group B is the next sort of set of tasks that need to be done. So we do this to allow some flexibility in people assigning the tasks when they feel like they're most appropriate for them. Yes, okay, so you can see that you can break large projects down into manageable tasks and subtasks. And each one of those tasks, there could be multiple subtasks assigned as well. So that's just a sample of how at Orca we use templates in Asana. And then let's go on to the next one, please, Lauren. And you can assign projects. We have tons of projects. You can you can see some of the ones I've got on the left, and we've also assigned all of our titles into our project too. And so what this does is it allows you to assign communication or tasks or templates to cross project. So you can see all of the activity around a title at a trade show that needs to go into a shipment. Like you can see how everything is connected through this actually very pleasant design. The interface, the Asana interface is a lot of fun to work with. You can look at tasks. Next slide, please, Lauren. You can look at tasks in different views. I actually didn't pull that out, but you can also look at different you can look at it in a list view, which is my preference. Other people look at them in calendar views. You know, there's different types depending on what your comfort level is, how you like to look at your timelines. You can attach files, you can email tasks into Asana, so email direct from email into Asana and turn them into tasks, link them up to projects. And what that does is it takes say a one-to-one communication on a activity or an account or an issue and puts it into this transparent, transferable system where everybody can action it. So it takes something that maybe somebody has to dig out of their email archive into a system where anybody who needs to know can find it. Asana has a really powerful search function. So it's really easy to find something from a couple years ago that maybe needs to come forward again. You can also see in this little picture just shows that you can have collaborators on different projects and different tasks. So people who are just informed that something has been done. So it takes it away from email where I have completed this project to marking something complete, and everybody who needs to know receives just a simple message in their inbox. This task has been completed, and they can just archive it. It doesn't disappear. It's just a simple archive. They've noted it, off it goes to the side. And it doesn't have to be like in your email file. Oh, this task has been done. And you have to take that email and you have to put it somewhere so you remember that it's been done. We use Asana for customer relations management software. So we collect all of the details about accounts in it, all of the history. It collects all of the interactions we've had with accounts, prompts for next steps, for routine contacts. And again, the power of Asana is that it's transparent, it's transferable if there are changes within your organization, it's searchable, and it's a fantastic cross-team archive. We're big fans. And I think that's my top level view of Asana. And so we'll go on to my other favorite tool. This is a simple one. Google Calendar. I know you're all probably using it already. I just love it so much because of its pure simplicity. Of course, you can use it on all sorts of different devices, and it's got lots of different flexibility in terms of views and all of that sort of thing. But what I really love about it and why I wanted just to bring it as one of my tech favorites today is the Find a Time feature, which I just adore. Lauren, could you just move on one? I think I have a tiny picture. So by adding all of your colleagues to view their calendar, which are blurred on the left, that allows you to see into their calendar. And then when you're booking meetings, you don't have to email back and forth. Are you available? What's your time preference? How do you think? You can actually see right into their calendars and book a time. So it's just, I know it's super simple, but I just think it's so powerful and minimizes what can be just sort of a protracted, are you available conversation. And of course, then when something has to be moved, it's super easy by looking at their calendar, using the Find a Time function to move that meeting to a time that suits everyone. Yeah. People are busy. I think that's it for me.
Thanks so much, Margaret. Fantastic tools. Love Google Calendar. What did we do before then? Next up, we have Jason Farrell. Jason is a transportation and logistics veteran with over 30 years of experience at industry giants like CN Rail, UPS, Acuristic, and KNN, or K+N, I'm not sure, transitioned to the University of Toronto Press in 2021 and has brought fresh insights to the publishing world. His expertise primarily lies in pharmaceutical distribution, but extends across various sectors, including heavy manufacturing, automotive, and high tech. And what do you have for us today, Jason?
Hey, thanks, Lauren. Thanks for the introduction, and hello, everybody, and appreciate being on the call. Of course, I've got something related to the transportation industry. We implemented this recently at UTP, and it's called To-Ship. How transportation tables have worked in the past is you loaded fixed tables onto your system, or you'd have a tariff that you have to regularly import. What's happening now is that transportation technology has moved up. It's not quite AI, but it's approaching that kind of software intelligence. And it actively shops your rates or actively looks at your rates against your tables, against transportation arrangements that you have with carriers. And then it looks for the cheapest rates. And where this is more effective than where it's been in the past is if somebody's living in an apartment. It will put the rate of an apartment charge against it. If there's a PO box, it will look at that PO box rate. It'll go right to that house, right to that individual, right to that customer. So why is this important? In the past, we've had more of a business-to-business arrangement business to consumer was, a novelty, even as recent as 10 years ago. Of course, with the gains in the internet, and I think this has been accelerated through the pandemic, we've seen a change in buying habits and more direct to customer shipments. And when you're thinking about Canada, these customers are very complex. Some of them have ice roads to deliver to. Some of them have ferries to get to their locations. In one case in Saskatchewan, there's a postal code, if you use postal codes, that if it was a nation would be the 14th largest nation on the planet. Canada's a vast nation and it's very complex to deliver to. And so with this technology, you're able to get right to that individual and take the guesswork out. And this has done a few things to help transportation in the industry. The first thing it's done is it's made it easy to get quotes, to get accurate quotes. You're no longer having to run around and get quotes for individuals who live in remote areas to get special shipments. But more importantly, when you're looking at rates within a certain area, they're up to date. So a fuel surcharge, which has been fluctuating rapidly in the last little while with the different stresses on supply chains to and from Ukraine and Russia, that fuel surcharge gets automatically updated into your field. And if you're doing shipments that are price sensitive or cost sensitive, that timing can be very important. And understanding when to place that order and how to place that order is also very important. Also, when you're looking at shipments to certain locations within remote communities or difficult to reach communities, it's important to know whether ice bridges are out, whether you can do this on land, or whether you have to fly it or ferry it into it. It also gives you updates on the time that it will take to get to those areas. If the ice bridge is out and you're still looking for ferry service, that ferry service takes longer than road, but the road was less expensive than air. And so you have two unpalatable options because the ice bridge or a river that usually is driven across is out. But what's good about two-ship is you have that information in front of you real time, so you can make that decision. And this used to be done by complicated departments. It was done with long intervals between negotiations, between the carriers and communication. And in that communication, sometimes the price would fluctuate as the communication was ongoing. To have a tool like this to readily shop the rate and to work it into a very complex transportation network such as Canada, it allows us to make the best decisions for our customers in terms of getting the product there on time at the best rate. And then the last item that two-ship has been able to do with us as we've been able to look up different carriers, and you can see the different carriers in this example on the screen, is that we can also look at carriers that have special rates into an area because they're backhauling into that area, or they have capacity and they desperately want units into that area for a special project. And we can take advantage of that in real time, whereas before we would need to have knowledge or we would need to have insight into the carrier to do that. Now we have a system that does this for us in real time. And the last thing to note is that two-ship is a bolt-on. Unlike previous transportation management systems where you had to implement them in a very complicated and expensive way within your own ERP, two-ship just bolts onto your ERP. It's an internet cloud-based system, and it doesn't need. All it needs is a reference point to and from your system, but it doesn't have to nest within your system itself. So it acts with this very complicated set of criteria without complicating your system. It portends well for where this is going as an industry and where transportation is going from a rate package by making it easier to access service and rates. And I think democratizing or standardizing with the availability of available transportation space and very real-time decision-making situations. So we're very happy to have two-ship. It's simplified and made things a lot cleaner and easier for our customers. And more importantly, it's allowed us to get more reliable service. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks a lot. That was fascinating. I really appreciate you sharing that. And next up, we have Andrew Faulkner. Andrew is a co-owner and strategist at Assembly Press, Canada's newest literary press, a long-term literary arts organizer. He was a managing editor of Invisible Publishing and served on the executive of the Scream Literary Festival. Andrew is the author of 2 collections of poetry, and he lives in Picton, Ontario. Take it away, Andrew.
Hi, hello. So we are a new press, which is a bit of a good news, bad news situation, because it's great because you don't inherit any legacy systems, less great because you have to build those systems yourself. So our goal when we first set out was to avoid a bunch of pitfalls that we had all experienced in our previous publishing lives. Trying to avoid data duplication, which seems like a real problem we've all run into, and to give us all access to more information and access to it more readily, and similar to Margaret's note about Asana, to avoid email when possible. So we settled on Airtable. The early returns are really great. We use it for all sorts of things. We kind of treat Airtable like the place for stuff we want to reference sometimes, or for the tasks that we don't need to have at finger's reach, but we're sort of within arm's reach. It's hosted on the cloud, so we can access it from all sorts of different locations, which is great because we're a totally remote team. And really, it lets us house a whole bunch of info that means we can access it when we want, so we don't have to email someone else and say, hey, remind me again what books we're publishing in 2025, or have you sent out those review copies for our new title yet? We can put it all on Airtable, and it lets us to check for ourselves. If you've not used Airtable, it's a customizable database system. It kind of looks and feels a little like Excel at first, but rather than sort of a big numbers tally type thing, it lets you put in information in a whole bunch of rows that you can cross-reference in all sorts of really interesting and helpful ways. So one example is, we'll have a list of all the different types of publication we might want to send review copies to. We can then track, who we're going to send copies to, who we have already sent mail out to. We can track if they've picked up a review and when it happened. And then we can tally all the reviews based on book or by publication or by season, so that our publicist, Debbie DeGroot, can go back and tailor her pitches based on what's working and what's not. Or our publisher, Lee Nash, can, without having to bug Debbie, take a quick look at her greatest hits for a grant report, or if an author asks, so what have you done for my book? It gives us all that information right at hand. Full disclosure, obviously, because we're a new company, we have built Airtable half around things we didn't like at previous jobs and half around best wishes for future selves. So it's very much a work in progress for us. I'll give you a really quick tour of the type of stuff we're putting in there. So on the operations side of things, we have standard stuff like the list of books and authors, where we can put it in one section, which Airtable calls bases, and then it will feed out to all the other ones, so we don't have to enter it in, which makes it really easy to do things like build a schedule to regularly review our metadata, or to match up which books qualify for which awards, and then whether they've been submitted to them. It lets us build some really neat little charts, like in our season outline, or because the publishing seasons for our US distributor and Canadian distributor don't line up. It makes it a lot easier to go in and look at questions like, if this book comes out in March, when would the metadata be due in Canada versus when will the cover be due in the US? And so lets us move books around based on availability and seasons. And it just makes it that much easier to make decisions like that. We also keep track of a whole bunch of marketing and publicity things in there. And it lets us make detailed notes. I'll go to the next slide there if you don't mind. It lets us make detailed notes on retailers in Canada and how they responded to an in-person event or various pitches. I've already talked about some of the ways that we can keep track of our promotional efforts and and really match things up well, gather more information about the things we're already doing, and not have to have it live in 5 different spreadsheets on a server or on our desktops or anything like that. And the last big thing, actually the thing we've been using for most right now, is to track our submissions. I'll say next slide, but there's not much on there. We have a forum on our website, which people can submit to, and then we can log into it here in Airtable, see their submission, but then also track our own reading efforts, so that we can each see which books, which manuscripts, each other have queued up, what their responses are to. We can track, keep track of rejections, and it helps us hone our discussions of the book, cuts down on a whole bunch of email, saves us having to copy and paste things all over the place. In a similar effort to keep stuff in one spot, cut down on the amount of email, we also use OneNote. And because we're a new company, we have to make a whole bunch of decisions all the time, and they just don't stop. The house is never quite on fire, but it always feels like the wheels are maybe a little bit about to fall off. If that's not a mixed metaphor, I don't know what is. But you get the idea. So we're really allergic to making decisions by email. They take a long time. You don't get the benefit of the generative discussions. And so we've started using Microsoft Notebook, the OneNote, to keep track of the things we have to discuss and how the discussions turned out. There's no real secret to Notebook. You could use a Google Doc. You could use any sort of online thing. I'll get you to go to the next slide just to show what it kind of looks like. So we have standing meetings. Sorry, do you mind going to the next slide there? Thank you. So we have weekly standing meetings. We all get together to chat on Thursday mornings. The big secret for how we do this is we build our agenda asynchronously throughout the week. So if I have a chat with a freelance editor that I have some questions for our internal team here about before going back to them, I'll add it to the agenda. It saves me having to send an email out. Means that the day before we have our meeting, the rest of the team can take a peek and see what it is that I want to talk about. I can see what they want to talk about. Then we get to the start of the meeting. It ends up being sort of a long list of bullet points. And we put them all in order and just start working through them. We make notes of major action items, discussion points. They end up acting as a really great reference. It gives us a lot of sort of personal accountability, group accountability on here are the things we said we would do. It gets to be 3 weeks later, and I think, what was that thing that Lee had said? It just lets us go back and reference it without having to nudge someone else. I don't want to pretend like we've invented standing meetings at all, but more so to demonstrate that it's really quite low tech, all things considered, to use them to make your meetings that much more efficient, have good, quick discussions, and then be done with them. I think I bit off a little bit more than I could chew with this presentation, but there's one last quick thing that we're experimenting with, very similar to Margaret's note about Google Calendar. We've started experimenting with it also as a way to cut down on meetings, make things quicker. The early returns, our publisher Lee used it to book her Frankfurt appointments and was thrilled at how much time it saved, how much email it cut down on. Her sort of one-line review was Microsoft Bookings she thought was better than other options like Calendly because it handled time zones quite well. If you don't mind going to that last slide. And you just create a quick little booking form here. You send it off to the person and say, here's when I'm available. Here are the times that I haven't blocked off my calendar, have at her. And then that way people can make up-to-date decisions on when they can meet with you based on your availability without you having to send about 8 different emails. And that's that.
That was fabulous. Thank you. Always love to know if there's a new booking tool out there that I need to swap out for the ham-fisted solution that I've built for my own workflow. So thank you so much. Next up, we have Tamara Mair-Wren. After graduating from the University of Western and teaching and traveling throughout Asia and Australia, Tamara took the publishing course at the Chang School of Continuing Education at Toronto Metropolitan University. She interned at Kids Can Press in the sales and marketing department and landed a job in 2011 at a company called Kate Walker & Co. as the sales coordinator. A year into her job, the company changed its name to Ampersand Inc. And in 2013, she took on the role of operations manager. Tamara has been working alongside the president on streamlining processes in the company to make it as organized, equitable, and efficient as possible. And I can attest to that as a witness. So I'd like you to take it away.
Thanks so much, Lauren. So yeah, I'm Tamara, and my job is complex in that I manage and organize 17 staff members and over 40 publishers. I don't have to collaborate too much, so my tips work well if you're kind of like a lone wolf in operations, which Lauren knows all about. So two large aspects of my job are onboarding new lines and staff and organizing sales conference 3 times a year for our staff and the publishers. So the 3 tips I want to share with you today are how I use checklists, some tips for Outlook, and how I use a notebook. So I'm on the very low technical side of this tech forum. So checklists, I like to use checklists because I have a lot of recurring tasks, and I like to use Excel because I don't have to rely on the internet to access my checklists. I can easily update my master checklist. I can also filter out things like what is already being done or who needs to do what. So onboarding new lines and going through the process of organizing sales conference are 2 of my recurring tasks. In Excel, the first tab is my master checklist that I can update. As we add new things, like making sure everyone is signed up for our gift emails or removing things that are no longer needed. Then when I onboard someone new or start a new season, I just copy the master checklist into a new tab within that spreadsheet and work off that one. So I have multiple tabs that are specific to each publisher or person or season that I'm onboarding, and I can toggle through and work on each one as needed. So a little tip, my best tip for checklists is for accessing the documents that you need to update quickly by copying the path that leads to the document and then pasting it into your checklist. So you would just open your Windows Explorer, which is where all your folders are saved, and click on the information bar at the top of the window that shows the path to your files. And then when that's highlighted, you just copy it and paste it into your checklist, or send it to someone who needs to access the same file that you're working on. So in my case, I paste it into my checklist. And then when I need to access a file, I just copy and paste that path into my Windows Explorer bar, and it takes me directly to the file I'm looking for, rather than clicking into a labyrinth of folders to get to a file. It just saves a ton of time. And this is if you use a PC. I think there's something similar for all you fancy Mac users out there. And just a few tips on Outlook. A few things I like to use with Outlook are the color-coded categories, the work offline button, and the delay delivery option. So in the morning, the first thing I do is go through my emails and assign them a category. So for example, as you can see here, I've categorized BookNet Canada Tech Forum as turquoise. And if I have a task or a category that's going to take all my focus and attention for some time, then I categorize it with a color, click on the Send Receive tab in the Outlook ribbon, and select the Work Offline button. So now I can work on the specific category that I need to focus on, and then I'm in a situation where I'm not distracted by emails coming in or other emails that are off topic, and can pull me away from my task, which happens a lot. Another thing I use a lot of in Outlook is the delay delivery option. When you open an email in a pop-up in Outlook, you can go to options in the ribbon and select delay delivery from the pop-up. You can click on do not deliver before, and then select your time and date for when you'd like the email to be sent. This tool is magical for me because I have things to send out that are time sensitive, as I'm sure everybody does. For example, when I'm working on my checklist for sales conference, one of the things I need to do is send every attendee in the conference an email reminding them about their specific conference time, but it may be too early to send that email out because I like to get through my checklists kind of as much as I can all at once. So instead of delaying the task, I'll prepare all the emails at the time and then use the delay delivery option to send out all the emails to go out a week prior to each person's presentation day, which can be as far as a month in the future. So it's like past tomorrow, it's helping future tomorrow, and then it's double tomorrow working when all those emails get sent out. And it's a task on my checklist that I can just check off instead of delaying and working on later on. And then quickly, I must mention that, and maybe this makes me old school, I have to use a notebook to write down what I'm doing each day. Yes, that's a physical one with paper and a pen. But I just mentioned this because I actively use it to organize my day and also to jot down all new things that pop up in the day. And I know I think everybody uses notebooks differently, or maybe you don't, but each day is a new checklist of items that I work on. So at the beginning of each day, I review what I didn't complete the day before. I carry it over into my new day. I don't take anything off until it's been completed. Actively having to repeat, like having the action of writing down a task keeps it fresh in my mind and reminds me that I have to get on it. I don't know if this feeling is relatable, but sometimes I feel like if I leave everything up to technology to organize me, I don't feel like I'm in control of anything. So the simple act of just writing things down gives me the sense that I'm the boss of my task and not my computer. I have calendar reminders, email follow-ups, in-person and verbal tasks, Slack requests. I have all these things coming at me that I just need to put in one place for me to keep track of. And that place is my notebook, which is always with me. So that's it. Thank you so much for listening.
Control freak operations person, that's completely not relatable. I don't know what you're talking about, Tamara, but thank you. Thank you for sharing. Too real, too relatable. And last up, we have Brendan Flattery. Brendan has worked with book metadata in various roles at a trade publisher for over a decade, from scheduling, process and systems development to e-commerce search marketing, research, and online optimization. Brendan has experienced the full life cycle of digital books. He also loves tabletop role-playing games and has helped friends publish independent POD and PDF books online. So let's finish this off, Brendan. Just going to ask you to unmute, Brendan. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Just going to start with Microsoft Teams, which clearly I'm more used to than Zoom for unmuting. Teams for quite a while at our company was just an IM app, just for instant messaging and communication, which we still use it for. But since the start of the pandemic, and especially since I moved into a different role at HarperCollins and a much larger publisher and a lot more context, I started using more of the organizational aspects of Teams. So we can go to the next slide. So not just the organizational aspect of the Teams, but how it can also integrate with other Microsoft apps. Oh, could you go back one, please? Actually, thank you. So this is just when you create a team. This is the main view of what you will see when you sign in. There'll be the post that you can declare something, and everybody will get a notification of it. But you can also see the files and notes that are in this folder. And the folders themselves can link around in different apps as well. Next slide. Thank you. So this is what one of the posts looks like. It's very simple kind of thing. They stay pretty sticky, which they're good for stuff that you want everybody else to know. Next slide. Thank you. But what I do the most of, and this probably comes from also being a control freak production person in digital asset management, is using integration for files. So each team has its own folder automatically, and it's accessible through the team app or through the online web application. But on the next slide, you'll show that It can also connect to the notebook. So for users of OneNote, you can see your notes right in the team as well. And then the files themselves, you can click the add shortcut to OneDrive, which will then show it in the Windows Explorer, just the regular old file explorer on Windows on the next slide. Yeah. So we'll just skip ahead to OneDrive. It's just accessing files everywhere. It's the cloud app. It's similar to Google Drive if you use that, but it's just more integrated and a lot easier for me to find things that I'm working on and also share things that I'm working on. So the gray boxes are just things that I couldn't show, but this is just an example of how it will look using Windows. You can also, instead of adding a shortcut to OneDrive, you can open it right up in SharePoint app online, which will look like this, all the same files and everything else, just a different location to access them, depending on where you're working and how you need to access them at a given time. And in this app, you can also favorite your files. You can click on anything that pops up in this app. You'll see, if you use it, you'll see every file you've opened recently. So if you want to make something sticky in the app, you just click on favorite, and then on the next slide, you'll see it that it's just waiting there on the welcome page for 365. Excuse me, I just need a sip of water. Thank you. So the other main thing that I love about OneDrive is copying links to files. If you've worked with a lot of people in a lot of documents, a lot of different presentations and spreadsheets, you'll understand that things get emailed. Things will get attached to chat messages as files. But I found out that, I found out that people tend to change documents and share them, but not necessarily with all of the users that were on before. So you can have a lot of version control problems from one document to another. So I highly encourage everybody I work with to just send me copies of the links so that we can be on the same page. And these can be emailed out to anyone or posted in the chat where everybody is already going to them, but they'll see one file instead of many potentially. And the other way I like to keep things sticky is that you can, right in the Windows taskbar, you can pin things to the apps themselves. You can pin, I believe, up to 13 different files. And this can work with other apps for Microsoft and others. So if there's stuff you use a lot, I find this is the great way to just call it up immediately. And the other thing that I like to integrate with Teams is the Microsoft Planner app. This is kind of like a ticketing app to keep track of tasks and collaborate with everyone, and also, again, to find files and status updates. So I find I typically start in the online app for tasks, and you can create a plan that can have multiple uses, but it's just a way, if you work on the same sort of process regularly, if you're scheduling things or whatever, this is a good way to keep track of where everything is in the process. You can create a new plan, then you give it a name, and then this right here is when you can add it to existing group, and that you choose the team that you've already created, and it immediately is associated with that team. And then you can start adding tasks. You can assign them to people. You can assign due dates. I think there's one that's opened up on the next slide. Yeah, on the left there, you can see where it is. It's not started. It's in the bucket to do, which is a custom bucket you can make. You can have more in progress. You can have awaiting approval. You can have all sorts of different buckets. You can assign priorities. And just take notes of what stages everybody's in as well. In the notes, there's options for checklists if you want to keep track of what's completed or not and what still has to be done. And again, you can link files. Yep, next slide is fine. And then you can go back into Teams, and you can use this as a hub just to see all the tasks as well as all the files and notebooks that you might want to use. So the tabs at the top are how you add this. So you can click on the plus sign, and it'll give you a window of available options that you can use. So you just select the task by planner, and then use the existing plan like you did with the planner on the web application. And then you see the exact same view in Teams, which I find some people, as we've all been discussing our various workflows, they're all kind of similar, but they can differ widely as well. So I'd like to go where people are to make things as easy as possible. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brendan. That was phenomenal. I didn't know that all of these tools on Microsoft were so refined now. It's been a long time since I've worked in that ecosystem.
Yeah, there's
I
way
really
more than I
appreciate
thought
that.
there ever was. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we have some time for Q&A. We have about 5 to 7 minutes. And I'm just going to ask the panelists, as you kind of slowly resume putting your cameras on and being ready to unmute. One of the questions that we have is a question for everyone. And if you are ready to answer, please just jump in. Are there any tools you're considering testing for your workflows? Anything AI related?
One thing that I'm working on now is Microsoft also has a feature called Power Automate, which automates a lot of different things. So I'm trying to work out ways where if I get emails, it automatically opens a task so that I can follow up on it, but still nascent.
Asana also has an AI component which you can turn on and off. So it prompts, you can either prompt by prompting a subtask and actually who it should be assigned to and timelines, or what that subtask or follow-up task should be.
We're also looking at Power Automate. So Brendan, when you figure that out, can you want to just let me know? And because we're also building all of our workflows for the first time, I'm playing around with turning Airtable into an Asana Lite, but there's a decent chance we just end up doing Asana and sort of living in the two.
We're looking at some front-end tools. We have the databases changed already and behind the scenes, but the front-end tools change how people query location of their order or freight. It uses English sentences as opposed to lookup, and it does have an AI type query table on it. So we're just in the starting phases. Nobody should be looking for this tomorrow or anything, but it's just a bolt-on that would interface into our system to provide visibility for customers.
We're starting to look at AI as well, but we're still having very, very, very early meetings about it. So maybe next Tech Forum we can talk about it.
And similarly, since you're thinking about adding things, I know this is very hard to do, to say no and let things go, but is there any tools that you're considering eliminating or phasing out of either your own or your company's workflows? This is actually inspired by Margaret's transition discussion at the beginning of your presentation, Margaret. So maybe if you've got something, I see you musing over there.
I'm musing. I love finding space by eliminating a project and activity that no longer has value. It isn't actually something we've done recently at Orca, but now, as we head towards the holidays and sales activity starts to become lighter anytime now, that's something we'll look at, but I can't think of anything offhand.
We are exploring moving away from data visualization services like Tableau into Microsoft Power BI as well, just for further integration, but that's still in progress.
Another question that came to mind is that I know some of these options, they have both a pay-to-play version as well as a free version. And I'm going to start with you, Andrew, because your press and your operation, you're really building it from the ground up. What are some of the considerations that you take into account when you're moving from free to paid?
Our considerations are we don't move from free to paid. Money is tight for everyone. It is especially tight when you have no books to sell. And as you know, so we pay from Microsoft every month. We felt that gave us a whole bunch of the tools that we needed with one payment, and everything else we would scrape by using the free version as long as possible, which is one of the appeals of an Airtable type of the you can get so far on the free account, and in fact that actually affected our decision to use it. Is we could coast by for an extra year without having to pay for an account on this one than on alternative options.
Has anyone else managed to transition from a free version to a paid version, either for an independent tool or something that is used across the workforce?
We use Slack and we use the free version, and we find that that's really, really effective for our company. But then sometimes, like for example, for our sales conferences, we will add other people, and you'll need a paid version to add a certain amount of people. So what we do is we just turn on the paid version for that amount of time and then turn it off, and then you end up having a credit, which is great. And there's there are really no rules or anything around it. It's just turn it on when you need it, turn it off when you don't, and it's really simple. So, and there are like a few little fun things that you can use with it with the paid version. So
nice. I have another question that came into mind when thinking about a lot of these, because a lot of these are collaboration and team-based tools. Not as many of us indulged in sole tools that help ourselves work. So for those of you that did kind of talk about your team tools, what are the considerations that you keep in mind when you're managing change, when you're bringing in new tools into the workforce, into your teams or into kind of larger spaces at work? How do you manage change? How do you get people on board? What are some of the things that you have in mind? Maybe I'll get Jason for that one, because I think there's been a lot of change at UTP under your guidance, and I'd love to know how you've successfully managed that.
Yeah, thank you so much, by the way. The key is that you bring people in at the beginning when you're discussing change. I think it's incorrect, and in my experience, it's incorrect that people don't want to be part of change. That the resistance to change is more resistance to the unknown, from my experience. And that you talk about change first by identifying and trying to solve a problem. And a problem doesn't mean you've done something wrong. A lot of times, problem just means you need to do something better. And then you start to explore the stakeholders that are involved. And don't be alarmed, because there are quite a few stakeholders. So the one item that we mentioned, to-ship, we actually did involve our carriers in that discussion. And we involved the people that used the product on the floor in our shipping department to know what they wanted to see. Through it, we actually made the interfaces easier to use. And they were happy because it gave them a better sense of visibility and control, but more importantly, they saw their thumbprint on the final product. And I think if people creatively see how they've contributed to something, they're more apt to take it on and to embrace it. And the only thing I'd caution you is you'll also find that everybody thinks it was their idea. So you have to be willing to sort of share the notion that, that victory definitely does have 1,000 parents, and just let them embrace that that is their child, and that they've done something and they've helped create it.
Excellent points. I thought I saw a knowing smile from Brendan. Is there anything to add there?
Oh yeah, I get that all the time, where things that I suggested years ago come back around. But yeah, involving people early, I agree with, and just saying, how can I save you time is the question that I like to ask as well.
It's a great conversation starter. Anything to add from anyone else on the panel?
I'll just add, sometimes change comes from, the bottom up or mid-level up. And I think that it's really only effective when the top also accepts it, right? Like it's really, you're really pushing the boulder up the hill if the executive team doesn't embrace the change as well. And that's sometimes hard. But I think it's critical too for the change to be effective.
I actually think that is a great place to end. I'm looking at the time and unfortunately I have to set everyone free. Thank you, Margaret, for ending with that. And thank you, Margaret, Jason, Andrew, Tamara, and Brendan for all joining us today. And before everyone leaves, both our panelists as well as our audience, we'd love it if you could provide feedback on our session today. We're going to drop a link in the survey, link to a survey in the chat. We'd love if you could take a couple of minutes to fill it out, and we'll also email that link to you, as well as email a link to a recording of this session as soon as it's available. And finally, we at BookNet would like to thank the Department of Canadian Heritage for their support through the Canada Book Fund, and to all of you in the audience for attending. We so appreciate all of you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for all of your tips and tricks. Bye, everyone.